I track the future with a couple of universities and institutes around the world. And just to let you know, the future can be tracked in many, many different ways. Singularity University is very well known for tracking technology. But Copenhagen Institute for Future Studies are very well known for tracking societies. And so the combination of societal shifts with technological shifts gives us an understanding of how to change our perspective for what's actually coming. And that's what I do. My speciality is combining human psychology, quantum science, neuroscience, futurism, and business strategy. And so in this lockdown, I had to become very clear that my fourth book that I was writing, called Evolution of Value, all of a sudden became irrelevant. Well, not totally irrelevant, but kind of irrelevant, because obviously everything has changed. And also all of my business got canceled. All the conferences I was speaking at got canceled. So after a day or two of mourning my future, which I'll be talking about in this talk, so I'm writing 3 books. They're a trilogy in how we need to cope with the future. And so the first book that I'm going to be talking to you today is called FutureNow. And FutureNow has got nothing to do with the future. It's got to do with how we perceive the future. The next book will be called Future How, where I'll be discussing and dissecting the economic system that we need to start re-looking. And then Future Next will be the third book and the third talk, which I'll be talking about the scenarios that could be playing out as we move into the future and the next step of the unknown and the uncertainty. So let's start with Future Now. And this is what I'll be talking through today. To the future, where all our dreams are becoming a reality, but so are all our nightmares. This coronavirus has shaken the foundation of our social and economic coexistence indefinitely. We are experiencing an uncontrollable collapse of our everyday life and the world that we know. What happens now will change the way we do business, we structure our societies, we run our governments, the way we work, the way we collaborate, the way we consume, the way we spend, the way we travel, and the way we educate ourselves all at once. And that's the dramatic impact this is having on us, because it's not just one thing that's changing, it's everything that's changing almost overnight. This unprecedented global crisis is an opportunity for us to prepare for the collective future we want rather than the one we've come from. And I'm sure you'll all agree, the one we come from was an overheated industrial revolution that had had its sell-by date. All of us were still trying to practice the characteristics required to be successful in an old economic system. And the Industrial Revolution was very well known for being linear and process-driven. But the world we're moving into is anything but linear and process-driven. The future we're moving into is adaptive, is flexible, is changing every few days. In fact, right now it's changing by the hour. And so the whole idea around efficiency and being focused on maximizing profitability falls short in a new economic system that requires robustness, that requires us to be adaptable rather than linear. This reset button or this pause button that we're having is forcing us to go inwards, both physically as well as emotionally. We are all isolated within our homes, but also isolated with our thoughts, isolated with what we are and who we are, and having the time to dissect and go deeper into our own psyche. And please keep in mind that this sort of scenario that we're playing out right now is magnifying our existing conditions that we never had the time to give attention to. In other words, if you were anxious before, you'll be even more anxious now. If you were sick before, you could possibly die now. If you were angry before, you have many more reasons to be angry now. But if you were thriving before, if you were creative before, this is an even bigger opportunity for you to become more creative, to find more opportunities. So welcome to this place that we find ourselves as humanity, where both our dreams and nightmares are being turbocharged. If you are creative, you have even more opportunity. If you are sick, anxious, or angry, you have even more opportunity to go into that shell. And so for many years, I have been speaking to organizations and governments about the future. And as incredible the reception was around me speaking about the future, very, very few times that people actually change their behavior. And so for me today, the talk is not about the future at all. The talk today is about the future now. And the future now is really about the perspective we hold about this future, the perspective we carry around what we want to focus on, and this opportunity for us to dive deeper into our motivating factors of what gets us to focus on X, Y, and Z. And so today I'm going to take you through a 9-step framework that I have utilized for myself through all the research that I've done for my 3 books that I've written, plus also how I've been able to apply these into my own life and how I've gotten myself out of a victim mindset into a creative, to give the time to mourn and grieve our future memories. We had projections and expectations and future memories that we were expecting to happen. No matter how frivolous these future memories were, whether it was just buying a pair of shoes or celebrating a friend's birthday at a restaurant or going to a marriage or a wedding or actually getting married, all of it's been canceled indefinitely. And so what we have to do is become clear with the fact that as human beings, when we go through divorce, for example, which I have been on and I hope nobody else has, but if you have, you'll know that what you do when you finish or go through that divorce, you're actually mourning the future memories you had built and projected into the future with your loved one. And so the process that we need to find ourselves or give ourselves the permission to go through is the 5 stages of grieving that we all know very well. The first one is denial. And initially when this started happening, a lot of people were in denial that this was anything serious. It wasn't actually coming to South Africa. It wasn't going to impact my business or our business. And in fact, when I made the decision to leave Dubai, which was a 24-hour decision, I made a video about it. And I had a couple of people comment below my video saying, you're just overreacting, John. And I started to realize that some people process the 5 stages of grieving very differently. And those people that were commenting that I was overreacting were in denial. So once you get through denial, the second thing that happens is we get angry. We get angry that all the things that we had planned to do, we get angry that all the places that we were supposed to go, all the cash flow that we had for X, Y, and Z that now it's been used to pay staff or just keep cash flow going. It's a very angry space that we find ourselves in. And that's okay to be angry about those things. And then we find ourselves to go through bargaining, because then we bargain with the fact that says, oh no, this will end soon. No, I'll just be fine. All our customers will come back and everything will go back to normal. And the truth is it's not going to go back to normal. And we're only going to start seeing the domino effect of the bankruptcies really start to come into fruition in the next couple of weeks or so. And then finally, we get to grief. And I don't know about you guys, but I've definitely found myself sobbing at times, watching what's going on in Spain or Italy or wherever else around the world, finding the real deep sadness that this is also causing, besides the sadness that is brought to my own life. And finally, we get to acceptance. And this is really the place that we need to get ourselves to as quickly as possible. So we find the energy to want to recreate and to perceive and look for other things that we can focus on. This will also help us climb up the panic barometer. Because what happens in the panic barometer is that the first thing that happens is we all go, what the hell's going on? I can't believe this is happening. I can't believe schools are closed indefinitely. This whole sort of panic around it. And then we move into, how do I survive this as quickly as possible? How do I make sure that I can sustain myself through this process? But the third stage of panic, which is what we need to do once we get to acceptance, is where are the opportunities for me to tap into my skills to be able to add value to my community? This really isn't a time to be making money. This is a time to be adding value. And I think that everybody is in the same boat. And as humanity, we have now become one in the very first time, I think, where we have one common enemy. And in this time, we need to find the tapping into our genius to be able to get real value to the community around us. And this is exactly why I'm releasing all my books for free and doing all my talks for free, because this is how I used to make money before. But I don't think this is a time to make money. This is a real time to try and help people around us as much as we can. So this is step 1. Mourning our future memories. Give yourself the permission and the luxury of time to go through all 5 stages, and you'll find yourself bouncing between them, but don't worry about that. Give yourself the time to go through them. But ultimately, try and get yourself to a place where you tap into your skill sets to help the community around you. 2, This situation is triggering each and every one of us at a very different place of our own survivor consciousness. In other words, we, in our very individual capacity of finding this situation, tap us into a very different state of survivor-ness. And so what I mean by this is you are either being triggered in a junior consciousness triangle or a mature consciousness triangle. In other words, you are seeing this wave of coronavirus is something that's happening to me or happening for me. So let me break this down for you, because this triangle has really helped me look at all the relationships I have in my life, whether it's with money or with an ex-girlfriend or with my mother or father or whatever it may be. This triangle is how we characterize everything that happens to our lives. And this is such a massive thing that's happening to us right now. It's really triggering us at the deepest place of our survivor consciousness. So the first triangle is called the drama triangle. And the drama triangle has 3 sides to it. And the first side is you could feel like a victim and continuously say, poor me, can't believe this is happening to me. I can't believe this is going on. This is such a self-centered way of actually going about living life, because what you're saying is, this is me losing everything that I've worked for, or this is stopping me from getting what I always wanted. And this obviously doesn't energize you in any way. The second triangle corner is called the savior, where people become sympathetic for everybody around them, and they need to find people that are in the victim mindset to be able to save them. And then people go about feeling sorry for everybody around them, but that doesn't help anybody. What does help somebody is to actually try and help somebody rather than feeling sorry for them. But actually, this process of saving people or feeling sympathetic for somebody is just giving yourself the permission to feel miffed about the situation rather than come out of it on the other side like a coach, that somebody can uplift people around them rather than feel sad for them. And the third corner is called the perpetrator, the person that's angry with why this is happening. We know some presidents like this right now around the world are angry with other countries that have created this disease, or that it's people that are stupid, that are licking trolley handles. I don't know if you've seen that video going around social media, or it's about, the way that government has dealt with it, or about the way this municipality has dealt with it. But whatever the case may be, people who are angry will always find something to be angry about. And so realize that if you're feeling sorry for yourself, or you're feeling sympathetic for other people, or if you're feeling angry with somebody or the other, you're finding this trigger on a very low consciousness, and your survival consciousness is very junior in its approach. Now, some parts of our lives, we are very mature, and other parts of our lives, we're very junior. And it's this that we need to become aware of so that we can become creators rather than victims. So let's go to the second triangle, which is called the creator triangle. And the 3 corners can now be replaced, and these characteristics can be replaced, because if you find yourself going through poor me, you can change it, become aware of it, and recalibrate it to how do I create through this? Where's the opportunities through this so I don't keep feeling sorry for myself? You can also move from sympathy to empathy. In other words, feeling sorry for people and seeing it from their angle and seeing how you can help them as a coach, not a savior. It's a very different energy. Coach is uplifting, savior is feeling sorry. And 3, you can turn anger into the challenger. In other words, instead of being angry, you can challenge people to step up. You can challenge yourself to step up and away from anger to creator. So if you're finding yourself feeling sorry for yourself, or feeling sorry for other people, or being angry with other people, realize that all you're doing is you bouncing back and forth inside this victim triangle that's not helping anybody. And to be honest with you, if you really dive down deep into your psyche, you'll realize that in some aspects of your life, you are junior. And other aspects of your life, you are senior. So take this time, this gift of time that we have, to dive deep into your psyche, to get yourself to understand that really what we need to do is uplift the survivor consciousness within ourselves so we can access a better form of energy to create through this. 3, I call this one burn your ships. In other words, we need to really accept that we need to prepare for a brand new normal. This virus is the single biggest stimulus in our history to move into a totally digital world. It's become a matter of survival for both personal brands and business brands to start working on their digital approach. And we're starting to see so many businesses now scrambling to take their linear business models to make them digital. This is not the right thing to be doing, because linear businesses are not always translated well into digital businesses. It's time to burn our ships of what used to work to be able to create a new model for this new world. Now, let's be clear about this. If we go back to some sense of normality, congratulations and mazel tov, because what you've done is you've created a new business. And if we don't go back to normal and things really get out of hand, then you're set up for this new world. This story of burn your ships is a famous story where a general arrived to battle with his soldiers, and he found that there were many more soldiers on the land than he had on his ships. And so what he did was he told his soldiers to burn their ships. And the first soldier said no. He killed that soldier. A bit of a harsh story, I'm sorry, but he killed that soldier. And then all the other soldiers burnt their ships and they went into battle, and they actually won the battle because they had nowhere back to fall back on. And so really what we need to realize is that we need to burn our ships, burn where we come from to be able to create new. This will catalyze your energy to start developing new. And right at the beginning of this talk, I told you guys that I was writing my 4th book. I was 1/3 of the way through it, and I had to burn, I didn't burn it, but it's digital, but I just got rid of it. And I went into now writing these 3 books that I'm writing at the moment. Also remember that every disaster brings about an incredible level of innovation and disruption into new businesses. We all know 2008 brought Uber and Airbnb and Pinterest and a whole bunch of different ones, but civil riots in Kenya also brought M-Pesa, or mobile money, to the world. Female professional liberation was brought about after World War II. And so you need to ask yourself a question: if you're staying on your existing ships, then you're not part of the new innovations that are going to be coming out of this. So jump on the bandwagon onto these new ships while you burn your old ships to be able to create new as we start moving into this future. 4, your state is who you are. In other words, the way you approach the world, the way you see the world, the way you project onto the world is actually who you are. And so what we need to do, and what I've been practicing, is breaking down my state into 3 sections. I'm made up as a human being, just like everybody else on this call, made up of an emotional state, a mental state, and a physical state. And for an emotional state, which I think is the most important one that we can focus on, is what are you doing to make sure that you're in the right emotional state as you start the day? I do meditation at the minute I wake up. Before my eyes are even open, I put my earphones in, I switch my phone on, and I've got Dr. Joe Dispenza Meditations. I don't know if you know who he is, but if you don't, I highly recommend you check him out. He's a neuroscientist that's developed meditation techniques that bring about a coherence between our head and our heart. And when you have a coherence between your head and your heart, you become very calm, very focused, and very elegant about the decisions that you make. Also, in the emotional state, I journal a lot, and I journal around the things I'm grateful for and the worst case scenarios that haven't actually happened and might not ever happen. And slowly but surely, as you're writing the worst case scenarios down, after a few days, you'll realize they're actually just victims of our imagination, and the things we need to focus on are the things that we are incredibly grateful for. The second state, I think, is the mental state. And so if we just lounge around the day and we don't really have a structure to the way our minds need to work in this new way of working, we can find ourselves to be depressed or anxious or bored. And so what I've done with my mental state is I've given myself 3 directives in the day. Where am I learning something new? How am I growing what I'm doing? And how am I chilling? And I think it's really important to have those 3 structures so that in the morning I'm learning, in lunchtime and afternoon, I'm growing and developing my books or new things that I'm doing. And then from 4 o'clock, I'm chilling. I don't want to be doing any work. I don't want to be accessing any of that sort of work stuff. And I'm finding that a lot of people are actually working even harder than they were if they actually sit at home with businesses going. But really, that's not very helpful at all. So get your mental state categorized into learn, grow, and be. And finally, physical state. There are thousands of brands online that are helping us do yoga, Pilates, HIIT, Fit, Schmidt, MIT, There's 1,000 of them. So just get onto YouTube, get onto Instagram, and do 20 minutes of exercise twice a day. I really feel that with this confinement and our inability to do what we used to do, to give ourselves the structure of getting our emotional state, our mental state, and our physical state right, really puts us in the best place possible so we can make decisions about the future. 5. I don't know if you guys have seen that channel. It's called Crisis News Network, or otherwise known as CNN. Stop watching it. Because what we need to do is focus on what we want rather than what we don't want. And what I've decided to do with my family here on the farm is give that channel 10 minutes in my day. 10 minutes to figure out what's going on around the world, or maybe not that channel, any channel you want, but 10 minutes to understand the stats of what's happening around the world, what are the latest laws that are happening in the country that I'm living in, and then 10 minutes to discuss what's happening, and then stop, just let go of it. Because if you are caught up in that triangle, you are in the junior consciousness. Because in that triangle, you need to be angry with somebody, you need to feel sorry for yourself, or you need to feel sympathetic for somebody. And if you're loving news channels, it means that you're in a junior consciousness, because junior consciousness is all about anxiousness. It's all about the crises that are happening around the world. And if you're caught up in it, ask yourself why you're caught up in it, because it's not helping anybody for you to be anxious, worried, or angry with anybody. Because over the long run, all you do is making yourself sick. So focus on what you want rather than what you don't want. Once you get into the creator triangle, the news will be the worst thing you can give yourself to do, because it's a waste of time. Sorry. Okay, number 6 is something that I've written about quite extensively in my last book called Foresight. And so I call number 6, How to Make Time Disappear. And this is really important because we have got an abundance of time. I'm sure you'll agree. And many of us, I'm seeing a lot of people online complaining about being bored. And so before I tell you how to make time disappear, let me tell you about what's going on and how we need to redevise what we look at and what we focus. In the industrial era, the Industrial Revolution was really a factory line. It was about efficiency and production and maximizing profitability and minimizing costs. The economies of scale was what it's about. But the truth is that system doesn't fit into this new system, because that system, that factory line system, required us to play certain roles to fit in with that system. In other words, we need to become cogs in the machine of the Industrial Revolution. So what did we do? We went to school and we went to university. And what roles did we play? We played the roles that the Industrial Revolution required. Lawyers, engineers, accountants, doctors, and name them. All the things that you can study at university. But what's happened now is we find ourselves in a surplus society. A surplus of 1,000 million doctors, 1,000 million engineers, accountants. And these people are very, very smart, but it's commoditized because there are so many of them that are out there. And so what we need to realize is that the world we're moving into is not so much about economies of scale, but economies of learning. And what I mean by this is that it's the people that are winning in this new world are the ones that are adaptive, the ones that are curious, the ones that are flexible, the ones that are optimistic about change, because the linear way of living was about redoing what you did last year just a bit more efficiently. And we're seeing that businesses that have done that really aren't doing that well. Because look at Gillette, for example. Gillette went from 1 blade to 2 blade, to 3 blade to 4 blade, to 5 blade to 6 blade. Did anybody ask for those last 4 blades? I didn't. But those poor sods in their white jackets inside the labs, all they could do was add another blade because that brought about more efficiency based on the linear business model. And Gillette had to write off $8 billion last year. Not because their products were bad, because their system that they're following is old. It's tired. At the exact same time, the $1 Shave Club got sold for $1 billion. And they had 1 blade, but a brand new business model. One that was focused on curate, match, and facilitate, which is a very different set of business models. But that's a whole different subject. But let's get back to how we make time disappear. If you are logical in the way you go about researching and thinking about the world, time is a process that you follow. But when you become deeply curious about a subject, you can spend 5 hours researching that subject and it feels like 10 minutes. And if you go through a process of doing something you don't like and you do it for 10 minutes, it feels like 5 hours. So my urge to you is switch off logic, switch on curiosity. Switch off linear thinking, switch on uniqueness. Because the world we're moving into is going to be celebrating authenticity and uniqueness, not surplus. It's pointless to be surplus because there are so many other clever people. What we will be celebrating is uniqueness and authenticity. And uniqueness and authenticity are brought about curiosity. And you are unique in your curiosity. Nobody else has got your curiosity. Only you do. And so I use myself as an example because I never went to varsity because I wasn't clever at school. I was terrible at school. But what I am is fascinated with human psychology, quantum science, future studies, and business strategy. And guess who else is fascinated with those 4 subjects? Nobody. Only me. And so what I get to do now is lecture at universities that I never went to. So the truth is, you can go into a process of informal learning, into a process of your curiosity, combine it with what you studied. You don't have to throw that away, but combine it so you can come about bringing a unique, authentic service to the world that nobody else has, and then the world starts celebrating you. And this is the new world we're moving into. I call it the quantum multi-adaptive world rather than the industrial linear world. An author, for me, or all authors, to win an Oscar in my world is to be on the New York Times bestseller list. And so how do I get onto the New York Times bestseller list? Because that changes my reality and my business. And so what I've realized is that I need to be much better at what I do. And that's why I'm writing a book a year. I need to be much deeper in my curiosity. I need to be much more unique in my voice. And I also need to be known in those markets. I need to have a publicist there. I need to have a literary agent there. And so it was obvious that Cape Town, where I was living, wasn't going to get me closer to the New York Times bestseller list. And what I needed to do was get into the global market. That GPS coordinate for me, that clarity of thought, changed my patience levels. It changed my work ethic. It changed who I hire around me as far as researchers are concerned and copywriters. And it changed all my reality based on my GPS coordinates. So my urge to you is start with the end in mind, start with a to-be list, and build an exponential life rather than a linear one, because we have this opportunity right now to redesign who we are and what we are and how we come about doing this. And friends of mine that have very big businesses, and I was on a chat with them recently, and it was a panic space for them because they've got 300 staff in one of their businesses and 400 in another business. And we're talking about the fact that he might have to let go of many of his staff. And I said, you know, Sean, his name's Sean. I said, Sean, what if you could redesign your business from scratch, doing what you did, but with a totally decentralized model? And he was like, yo, I haven't thought about that. I said, you could actually hire all your staff as freelancers or consultants to come and service you based on a new exponential living GPS coordinates. So write a to-be list. Who do you want to be when this ends? And design your life backwards from that. You don't have to be stuck in where you actually started off. And the last point, I call wisdom. And just to be sure, wisdom is only for the brave. And what I mean by wisdom is our ability to have a world and reality that we are never triggered in, that we never snap into anger or old ways of thinking. Alan Watts says, the knowledgeable man has to learn something new every day, but the wise man has to unlearn something new every day. Tony Robbins calls wisdom moving from unconscious memories to conscious memories. Dr. Joe Dispenza says, are you living a life based on a set of memories of your past, or are you living a life based on the vision of your future? Now, let's understand that all human beings are made up of memories. And these memories either energize us or make us feel sad or angry or resentful. Now, science has recently proven that all our memories are subjective stories, and that only 50% of them are actually true. Now, it's not for us to decide which 50% are true or not. What I did with my life is I took my memories that energized me and left them alone. And I took all my memories that de-energized me, that made me angry with my dad, or made me angry with my ex, or made me angry with whatever. You can count 100 million things you can be angry with. And I decided that these memories that weren't energizing me needed to be focused on, needed to be healed, so I can move away from having them catching me all the time. Because the truth is, you can't create a new future if you're still holding on to crap from before. You just can't. You just can't move forward. And one of the greatest teachings I got from Dr. Joe Dispenza, because I've been on many of his meditation retreats, he said that if you think about somebody from your past, and you're still angry and still resentful and still sad, you haven't let go of who you were in order to become who you need to be. And that's a great point to think about, because we can all get caught up in the habit of being angry with X, Y, and Z. And in that process, we are keeping ourselves old and in the past, not in the future. And you know, as a futurist, the irony of preparing for the future, and what I tell audiences that I speak to all the time, the irony of being prepared for the future is letting go of your past. Because the minute you let go of your past, you have a clean blank slate to be able to develop on. It's a clean blank slate to reinvent. And you can't reinvent when you're holding on to stuff from your past. So we don't need more clever people in the world. We need more wise people in the world. And wisdom is somebody who has memories with no triggers, moving away from blaming our past to thanking our past. And in this incredibly tough time for all of us, it really is a time for us to add real value to the world. And don't be afraid to start again. You might like your new story much more than you liked your old story. So welcome to our future, where all our dreams become a reality if we choose them to be. Thank you so much for your attention.